Sure. Yeah, so my name's Eric King. I'm the head of research at Privacy International. I run two of our main programs, one called Big Brother Incorporated, which investigates the trade and surveillance technologies, as well as our Eyes Wide Open project, which investigates and researches the surveillance agencies of the Five Eyes countries, which is the UK, US, Australia, New Zealand and Canada, with an aim to litigate, to expose their intelligence sharing practices. I mean, I think it's irresponsible for any government to be encouraging their citizens not to be skeptical of government. I think by its nature we need to be skeptical of government, and I think people in government should be encouraging citizens to continue to be skeptical. Trust is never a good thing when it comes to power. Of course you need trust, but trust needs to be the icing on top of a very rigorous ability for citizens to be able to keep their state in check. It cannot be the first and only thing that we have. So every time I hear a government spokesperson on it, I cry a little bit. I don't think that's how states are meant to work. I don't think that's how democracy is meant to fundamentally work. But for others that say it, while I'm sympathetic to it as an idea, I don't think that people really think it. We all care about privacy in some forms, in different ways. Most of us wear clothes every day. We have curtains that we close every night. When we want to go and talk about somebody, we go to a corner of a pub, or there's a whole range of activities that we all do every single day that shows that we're selectively choosing information to share to different other people. For me, that's what autonomy is, that's what personal dignity is, that's how we make choices and go through life. Building relationships is what life is about, and privacy is the ability to control about what information you share about yourself with different people. It is fundamental to life and fundamental to democracy. Our ability to express ourselves privately, to build ideas, to be creative, to push our political views, religious views, whatever they are in all its forms, are what allow us to then, and to do so privately, knowing that we won't be condemned for doing so, knowing that we won't be ostracized for doing so, allowing us to develop, is what allows humanity to develop. And we've seen over the course of the last 100 years, every single progressive movement, all the progressive movements that we in Britain and the rest of the world are proud of, the civil rights movement, the suffragette movement, were all placed under such heavy surveillance. It's astonishing that they were able to overcome it. I question, and I'm really concerned that whether modern movements are able to overcome the state surveillance that's currently in place. You look at the Arab Spring, and there were states that were reformed and there were states that weren't, and you wonder the role that surveillance played in that. I think in Egypt, for example, they got to a point where there was just too much communication, there was just too much information, and so Mubarak made the decision to switch off access. People were able to reach that tipping point. In other countries like Bahrain, the state surveillance is so effective and so powerful that that popular movement that is still uprising is being able to be crushed. And I think that surveillance has a big role to play in that. So I don't think that I think that everyone has things to hide. I think that everyone should have things to hide. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I think we want more people to have things to hide, because that's what makes people people. That's what makes people interesting and diverse. And that's what I think that a lot of our world is about. Regrettably, the oversight mechanisms that are in place to cover GCHQ are minimal at best. GCHQ themselves know this. It's why they boasted to the NSA, and we know this via the Snowden documents, that they have a respectively limited light touch oversight regime. Their weak oversight is a selling point for them to the NSA. That's why they still have such a strong relationship in many ways. They also boasted about the IPT, and which is the tribunal this is meant to adjudicate on cases where people think they've been spied on and are asking for redress or seeking redress. It's the exclusive legal venue that every party must go to. You can't go to any other court or address any other tribunal or party. And the security agencies and intelligence agency boast as well that, thankfully, they've found in their favour every time. And that is the case. The tribunal has never ruled against them, which is unimaginable, actually. If you think about the nature and scope of what it is that our intelligence agencies do, even if they were the best possible people in the world, following the best practices and best rules, all public and clear, agencies still make mistakes. There isn't another agency that exists in government anywhere that hasn't made a mistake or done something wrong at some point. The people that work for them are human. And so the idea that somehow this agency is untouchable and has never gone further than they should have, doesn't reflect reality. The other big problem is that our main parliamentary committee, which isn't strictly a parliamentary committee as we understand other parliamentary committees to be, it's appointed by the president rather than elected, appointed by MPs. And their main spokesperson and current chairman, Sir Malcolm Rifkind, used to be Foreign Secretary, which means that he was in charge of GCHQ. So how he acts as an independent advisor on this issue, I think, is very problematic. I think one of the most revealing ways that you can begin to see how independent the committee ends up being is how they refer to us and them, us being government and the security agencies. So just in the language, there's no kind of pretense that Sir Malcolm isn't part of that same club and sees himself firmly within that spectrum. So the Five Eyes is a post-World War II intelligence sharing club of the English-speaking countries, UK, US, Australia, New Zealand and Canada. UK and the US were the initial partners in 1943. In 1946 it was more formalised. New Zealand and Australia joined shortly after in 1948. And the starting point for this arrangement is not let's collaborate in a loose way when it suits our purposes. The starting point is all intercept, all signals intelligence information that's gathered is to be shared among all parties. They go so far as to say the only circumstances where that isn't the case is when it might endanger the national security of that country, so there are some limitations, but they also say that the only other reason that you wouldn't hand over everything is if you'd be handing over your only copy of that data. We found out about this arrangement properly in 2009, when the NSA published the original agreement between those countries. Before that, while it had been mentioned in history books and kind of vaguely referred to in various kind of defense journalists' pieces or intelligence journalist pieces, it was really a casual reference, and there was never a good understanding of what actually was taking place. The Snowden revelations have shown us that far from disappearing, this surveillance pact is still in place and the most powerful it's ever been. Almost every single one of the documents that Edward Snowden has released has, at the top or the bottom of the presentations, release to REL2/TS top secret /UK, US, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or FVEY, which is Five Eyes. And so while some of the stories have been about NSA activity or some of the stories have been about GCHQ activity, most of them refer to the actions of all five of those countries. And that bloc are playing a significant role at the United Nations, preventing other states from taking action against the NSA or GCHQ. A few months ago, they tried to argue, thankfully unsuccessfully, that there's no such thing as a right to privacy. There's a right to a private life and to security of your person and of correspondence, but no right to privacy beyond that, which is an astonishing thing, I think, for 5 of the most developed states in the world to start arguing. And they're doing it only for the reason that they want to maintain their information superiority over the rest of the world. We've been trying to find out exactly what these agencies are doing. We've requested the current Five Eyes documents. We've been refused in every single jurisdiction that we've applied for, which is problematic, not for just the reason that there needs to be a big public debate around this, but these are the documents that underpin how we're being spied on. They underpin the legal justifications for how intelligence gets shared. There's a serious concern that the agencies are playing a game of jurisdictional arbitrage, where the US asks the UK to do the things that the US can't do and vice versa. Now, we don't know to what extent that is happening or not. It's certainly going to end up happening in some circumstances, whether intentional or not. And these are the documents that outline what those practices are. We're getting assurances from our government that those things aren't going on, but until they publish those records, it's impossible to know for sure. And even within that, why these documents are being hidden in the first place, I think should be concerning for all of us. These are documents that pertain to the most influential and important, not just kind of signals intelligence relationship that we've ever known, but maybe even the most important security relationship we've ever known. While we all know NATO, we all know the role that they play in the United Nations and the documents that are there within that,